Hello and good morning, our beautiful mystery seekers. Welcome back to Mystery Sisters. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Crystal.
How you doing, Crystal?
I'm great. How are you?
I, girl, man, this has been a rough week. You know how last week it was a rough week for you? Yeah, this week was a rough week for me. Okay, I almost didn't even want to come into work today.
We got to pull through. We got this.
Trying,
It,
trying.
it's been a rough week for the both of us.
I
There's
literally
a
had an anxiety attack. Like, I think what was it? What day was it? Like 2, 3 days ago?
I was at work, so it had to have been Sunday or Monday. I think it was Sunday
That's
for
not two or
sure.
3 days ago.
No, I know, but like I know the because we're talking about that thing, right?
Yes, that
Okay.
thing that I texted you about.
Yeah, I believe I believe that was Sunday or Monday.
Oh, I don't remember. See, this week was a blank.
Yeah, this week's been really hard for the both of us. I mean, we've got some stuff going on with our basically like family. So I'm dealing with that right now because it's hitting me on a personal level. But, we have bad days and we have good days. And look,
Definitely.
we still show up for work.
I almost I almost flaked on you. I'm
I
not gonna
know.
lie.
I honestly thought you were going to, and then when I saw you were video calling me, I was like, "Oh, good. Girl wants to work today because I don't want to do this tomorrow."
I'm like, honestly, I almost flaked. I mean, I did pre-warn in our introduction that I'm a flake, so
I would have called her. I would have blown up her phone, guys. Like this was not gonna not happen. I would have just kept blowing up her phone. Been like,
well,
okay, we will reschedule the day if need be, but we're gonna do this.
I mean, keep in mind, I have my days where I'm an on and off. Like I will be playing games for a month straight, and then if I lose interest and I have to, and because I'm finding something else interesting, like YouTube, a TV show, which by the way, sorry, you're watching Supernatural. Ha ha ha. My husband and my husband and it's
TikTok said he was mine.
oh, don't even. And it honestly though has been bringing me so much joy just rewatching this again because it's like rewatching it all over for the first time, even though I already know what's gonna happen, but I'm rewatching it like it's like the first time for me because I
You know,
needed
it
it.
it's a chemical thing in our brains, especially with anxiety or even with borderline. Like it helps with borderline a lot because we need that consistency. We need that, like we need to know for sure. And that's why I rewatch shows all the time. Like I even tell my boyfriend that all the time because I'm like, oh, I'm watching this for like the millionth time. I'm like, are you gonna be ready for that when we live together? Because this is gonna happen. Like I'm gonna go through this like random moments where I'm like, I need to watch this, and I will do nothing but watch that one show until I from beginning to end. And even if I fall asleep, I have to replay the episode because I missed it, even though I already
Yeah.
know what happens. Like I
Yeah.
need to rewatch it.
Yeah, like I when I started rewatching Supernatural, I even texted Aaliyah's dad because like I had to pre-warn him w when he came home, and I was like, just let you know, I'm rewatching Supernatural. He goes, "Oh, good, it's a show I already know. Great." And I'm like, "Great, I'm glad we're on the same page because I'm not gonna stop watching it." It's like it's bringing me joy right now, and I'm gonna watch it when I can.
Oh,
And honestly,
speak.
he's been like. He's been so supportive on that too because like he'll sit here and he'll sew and then he'll watch it with me. And then I even like kept telling him, I was like, you can take your TV back, you can take your TV back, and he's like, nah, we'll do it after this one or after this episode or after this one. I'm like, okay.
Speaking of my beautiful niece, if you guys don't follow us on Facebook, you're going to need to soon because she is going to be modeling our shirt and I'm in love with it. I got to see it before we started recording, even though she was being a little shy butt. I love
Yes.
it.
So I took some pictures of her modeling the shirt, and I have some pictures of totes that I made and other kinds of color options for the shirt. So I'm gonna be posting all that later today.
And if she doesn't, I'm gonna remind her.
I might be taking a nap after. Who knows?
We both have work.
I'm just saying, I might just end up taking a nap after the podcast. Who knows?
This is just our fun job.
This is just this is just a quick, I don't know, our what do people do like when not hobby? Oh, I guess it's a hobby. Is it a hobby?
It's kind of like a hobby, but I mean, I wouldn't mind doing this full time, if you guys want to help us out.
Full time, no distractions, actually get more information out, and actually have like a website for future merches and yeah.
Yeah, because I have the most people-y job for somebody who doesn't do people. So, like, if you guys want to help me get out of that, that's great.
Oh, trust me, I don't want my people job either. Working in a retail area and all I have to do is customer service and see people every day. No, no, thank
I
you.
work in a gas station and I love my customers. I do. I really do love them. But it's just still catches me off guard every time they're like, "Hi, Crystal, like how are the kids? How's your partner?" They like talk to me like we're best friends and all the time and I'm like, "I don't want to stand here and have a conversation with you. No offense. I'm not a people person."
Yeah, there's only a few people I can stand at work, and that's it. Those few people is who I talk to on a daily basis outside of work and inside of work. Like, I can't stand certain people there. So,
I love most of the people I actually work with though, since my best friend is my manager, so that kind of helps.
well, lucky you,
Except
huh?
for except for sometimes, when I want to kick her.
We all want to kick our managers. I know I do.
Well, I want to kick her even when she's not my manager. I just want to kick her.
That's what our best friends for.
Exactly. Just want to kick her. Alrighty then. So, is there anything you want to say before we actually start?
So, today's topic is going to be very sensitive for most of our viewers. And disclaimer, it is going to be talking about children and death and SA and CP. Uh, just a very, very obviously sensitive topic. So pre-warning, if you can't handle any of that, we totally understand and we'll see you next week. And if you haven't watched our past episodes, then watch our past episodes. We did one of Gypsy Rose, Urban Legends. Um,
You said we would never say that girl's name again.
uh, hey, I have to mention it. It's in the title of our video.
Ugh.
Sorry. She really hates that episode, but at least we got that out of the way. And if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and go watch it. If then we totally understand.
All right, so we are going to take you all the way to Walton, Liverpool, England. Starts off with Robert Thompson and John Venables. Robert was born on August 23rd, 1982, and John Venables was born on August 13th, 1982. And for the most part, these were two pretty normal 10-year-olds, I guess, like as normal as 10-year-old boys can be. Um, they both had a very different upbringings in their life, which, I mean, they always say opposites attract. I guess that's how they became friends. It's not really a story on how they became friends or if they were even in the same class. But for Robert, he had a very disturbing upbringing in his household. He watched his siblings and his mother be, SA and beaten by his father. And It did cause his mom to become a severe alcoholic. His father did do stuff to him, which, could be part of why he ended up the way he did, but there's no actual guarantee about that. Where John, on the other hand, um, he didn't really, he had a pretty normal life, which I found interesting. He, his family wasn't, really rich, but they were financially comfortable. His parents were estranged. They did end up divorcing, but it was a pretty well kept together family for the most part. Like no abuse or anything like that. Um, but he did become a bully in school. When it came to school time, he was definitely the one in charge and he was definitely the head honcho, I guess you would say. He definitely enjoyed being in charge and hurting other kids, which brings us to February 12th, 1993, when James Patrick Bulger, who was born on March 16th, 1990, he was a 2-year-old boy who was at the New Strand Shopping Center with his mom doing some, just midday shopping. Robert and John were playing truant from their local primary school, which means they were skipping school, when they decided to put their eyes on Bulger, and him and his mom let go of his hand for just a second to pay for her stuff. He ended up going missing, which lucky for us, they were caught on the CCTV. You can see him holding John Venable's hand as they're walking out of the shopping center. And they ended up walking past over 30 people.
Yeah, 30 or so, roughly, I think is what they said. That's how they were caught 2 days after he was missing.
Yeah.
Basically, um, did was there more beforehand?
So they just said that he or the boys ended up convincing him to go with them, and they were walking him. They made jokes about pushing him into this creek and drowning him. Um, but there was a lot of people around, so they didn't do that. They ended up walking 2.5 miles away, which why it took them 2 days to find James's body.
Yeah, they went 2.5 miles across Liverpool and even said that two people confronted them, but they claimed that they were his little brother or that he was lost and they were taking him to the police station.
Yeah, because I guess James was crying. I mean, obviously he's 2 years old and scared.
Yeah, I would
He
be too.
he wanted his mom. They don't say what they used to get him to walk with them because, like, he's holding in the picture, he's holding his hand, no problem. Like, it's not forced.
Yeah,
He,
they were walking like it like just out, no struggle, no nothing. Not even people said that they even saw that there was a struggle. They didn't see anything. They didn't think of anything like that.
yeah, the reason why this case is so interesting to me, though, is because, I mean, these are two 10-year-old boys. They're the youngest convicted unalivers in British history, which is just insane because, I have a 9-year-old who's about to turn 10 and I have an 11-year-old. I cannot imagine what would be going through a kid's head to do something like this, especially to a toddler.
Yeah, I they don't really explain that either. They never really said why they did it because even then I read on the like in one of the interviews that they were actually they weren't just seeking out Bulger, they were seeking out another kid too, but was intervened by his mom. They never really said who, but then I guess that's probably why the how they got, a hold of James Bulger.
Yeah, because like I said in the picture, he's just holding their hand and he's just walking out with them. Like I don't know if they promised him candy or a cool toy. He just went along with them. And they ended up taking him to a railroad track finally because there was a cop that was parked across the street from where they were initially going to stop at. And so it they took him a little farther and they ended up on a railroad track. And then that's when everything got pretty bad.
So it's really hard to even talk about this because having kids of our own, I can't I can't imagine. Like this is actually really heavy on me because I don't know what I would do if Aaliyah went missing. If my kid went missing. I my heart is really out to, the Bulger family at the time. I heard about this story, but I didn't know much of it because obviously it wasn't from my time. But people did talk about it all over, especially true crime shows. Unfortunately, when they brought him to the railroad, he suffered 42 injuries in total. It was said that um before they got a hold of Boger, they, shoplifted in the shopping center. They stole like a blue spray paint can, candy and all the other stuff. And that's how they kind of got the boys too, because one of them kicked him so hard that it left like the paint on him, and they even threw it at his head. It allegedly said that it was SA because he was found undressed as well. Um, I forgot. Was it something about like batteries?
Yeah, when so they dropped fish plates that was about 22 pounds on him. They used stones and then they did stick a battery in his mouth and they did say that they stuck some in his anus, but they didn't find any there. So there's no actual proof if that's what they did. They just said that's what they did. But like, why would 2 10-year-olds lie about that?
I have no idea. Um,
He suffered so many, like, yeah, 42, like you said, but they don't know which one was the actual initial final blow because when they got to the canal, they did drop him on his head. And then that's when obviously James probably started to get scared and he's crying. But there was a cop nearby. So that's when they took him to the railroad tracks and started beating him with the stones and
the
kicking
fish
him.
plate, yeah.
Yeah, they
They
placed batteries in his mouth.
When he suffered 42, yeah. So like Crystal was saying that when he suffered 42 injuries, that they have no idea exactly what was the final blow. One of the boys stuck James on the railroad track and was hoping that a train would come by and make it look like an accident, which
Which a train did end up hitting him. They didn't find him, like I said, for 2 days. So obviously a train did come and go at that time. So he was found, obviously not in one piece, unfortunately, which I couldn't even imagine for the parents to find their child, like, hey, we found your son. and have him not be in one piece, because my son, we had a casket, it was open, but they couldn't even have that for his funeral. Like, that's got to
Yeah.
be horrible.
Yeah. I um sorry is actually really tough to even talk about that because especially with
He was found by a group of kids too. It wasn't even adults that found him.
it must be the big hangout spot for the kids. Oh my God, I cannot imagine that probably what it did to them.
And, if it wasn't for all the witnesses, they probably would have been looking for a predator at that time because, like you said, he was undressed and there was, his heart, there was skin that was pulled back, like it did look like it would have been a predator that did this, not two minors.
So when they got caught, um, 2 days after the death, um, like we said, he was spotted roughly around 30 people obviously saw them with the kids and it's crazy to the town that it was suspected them to be, you know, the youngest. Like they didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to believe that a bunch of kids would do that to a 2-year-old.
Well, I mean, who does think that? Like my daughter plays with Barbies. Like I don't I don't understand like why your mind would go to, oh, a child did this. Like, no. You don't think that 2 10-year-olds would do something like that.
So when they were caught and arrested, um their full trial did not begin until November 1st, 1993, and they were charged as adults. Now, here's my question. Do you think they should have been charged as adults?
I mean, yes, to a point because it's an adult crime. Like like you can't just they knew what they were doing. I mean, wasn't like they were playing with a weapon and it accidentally happened. They sought him out and they did it.
That was also a debate also if they actually knew right from wrong when the psychiatrist was interviewing them.
Yeah, and they like Robert Thompson developed PTSD because of it. He had nightmares about it and but he knew what he did. And John, he was already a bully. He was already known as his school bully and already understood what violence was.
Wasn't he the one with the normal life? See, that just, well, normal-ish life. Like it wasn't as bad as what Thompson went through.
Yeah. He had a pretty normal upbringing, which is why it's that question that everybody asks, like, what makes basically a killer? Like what makes you do that? And in this case, we really do not know because they had two very different upbringings and their friendship ended up being a recipe for disaster. So, due to the England laws, um, the boys were charged on February 20th, 1993. They were reprimanded in custody to await their trial. And because of their ages, they were known as Child A for Thompson and Child B for Venables. And when they were awaiting their trial, they were held in the secure units that would be eventually sentenced at Her Majesty's pleasure, which basically kind of just means that the Queen would decide exactly how long they were going to be held. Their trial caused a lot of attention, though, obviously, because again, these were the two youngest boys, or not even boys, but two youngest people in general to do something so horrible. And there was no question that they did it because, I mean, the CCTV had their pictures, had, all those witnesses, and plus their DNA was all over the place because they stomped on him. So their shoe prints and everything were all over the place. So there was up to 500 protesters at the courthouse during their court appearances, which also neither boy ever actually spoke at their trials, not once. They didn't say sorry, they didn't explain why they did it or how they did it. They did not speak at all. Um, their families even had to get new identities and be moved to different places because they were getting threats from people because obviously people blamed the parents like
Yeah.
usual. If a kid does something wrong, it's the parents' fault.
Apparently, because I mean,
Well, in Robert's case, it kind of was.
well, I mean, if you obviously like in our future cases that we'll be talking about, we'll be talking probably about their parents as well. So I can understand why they had to move and get new identities. It's just it's crazy because they probably didn't even suspect their boys to even do it.
Nobody thinks their kid is going to do something like this. But court opened on November 1st, 1993, which you mentioned before, and they were tried as adults. Um, they were not even allowed to talk to their parents or anything, though. They were completely isolated, which has got to be scary for them. I mean, again, they're also just kids themselves.
Yeah, even says that the European Court of Human Rights, which ruled in 1999 that they had not received a fair trial by being tried in a public as an adult.
Yeah, but this was premeditated because they tried to take off with another actually 2-year-old boy, but the mom stopped them. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to not try them as adults because I mean, this was premeditated in a way. They went to that mall expecting to do something,
Yeah,
obviously.
uh it said in court that, you know, they were considered by the court to be capable of mischievous discretion, meaning an ability to act with criminal intent as they were mature enough to understand that they were doing something seriously wrong. Um, Even said that when they interview a psychiatrist, Eileen, she interviewed Thompson before the trial, and she was asked in court whether he would know the difference between right and wrong. And she replied, if the issue is on the balance of possibilities, I think I can answer with certain. She also said that Thompson was suffering from PTSD after the attack, which you did mention earlier, but
Yeah, he kept having nightmares about it. Um,
we're
so
just,
apparently it was John's idea to take him to the railroad track. Like I get they want to say that he was the mastermind mostly behind it, and maybe Thompson went along with it just because maybe Venables was his bully. I like they don't really say if they were like best friends or just classmates. All we know is that they went to the same school. And it was Venables' idea to you know, go there, but they don't really specify why he chose that exact area. Mostly it just seemed like it was a
I feel like there's a lot of missing
convenience.
pieces because what the boys didn't talk at all during their trial. They didn't
Yeah, no,
explain any of it.
they had the psychiatrist and they had each a social worker. And like I said, they were separated from their parents. So they really didn't get to say a whole lot. The social workers and the psychiatrist spoke for them. That
Yeah.
but they tried denying the kidnapping charge and all of that, but I mean, there's proof of it, and all Venables says is that Bulger liked him. He held his hand with no problem. He really enjoyed being with him, and it just kind of seemed like it was a fun day for them.
Um, Honestly, I think that with him trusting, who was the one that was holding his hand?
John Venables was because John even says that he liked him because he held his hand and all that with no problem.
So do you feel like because he was a bully in school, like he just felt like because he was a little kid that like obviously befriend him and then he felt power to bully a 2-year-old?
I mean, maybe. I mean, he was already a bully in general. He was the one who was a bully in school. So that's why they think he was the mastermind behind it. He's the one who's holding James's hand. And it says that it was his idea to go to the location that they went to. But I mean,
Um,
nobody knows for sure because they did not really speak about it, and there's because of their age, there's not a whole lot on their testimonies like with lawyers or anything. The only thing that they say is that Thompson had PTSD. He had dreams about it, and it really messed him up. He has shown remorse over the incident, where Venables, he never really showed remorse, but he did, after every court appearance, take his clothes off because he said that he could smell James on him, like a
didn't
baby
show
smell.
signs of PTSD. He didn't show any signs.
No, nothing that is said. They just said that he stripped after court every time because talking about James made him smell him.
Huh. Well, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, obviously because they were caught with a bunch of evidence and witnesses that the by the age of 11, both of the boys were found guilty for the death of Bulgers on November 24th, 1993. And then shortly after the trial and after the judge had recommended a minimum sentence of 8 years, Lord Taylor, the the Chief Justice, recommended that the two boys should have a minimum of 10 years, which have made them eligible for release in February 2003 at the age of 20. Apparently, the editors of the Sun handed a petition bearing nearly 280,000 signatures to Michael Howard, the Home Secretary, in a bid to increase the time spent by both boys in custody. And it was successful. Like, they got that, like, it was a successful petition that in July of 1994, they would have been kept in custody for a minimum of 15 years, which means they would have been released at 25.
Yeah, well, they ended up getting released in June of 2001 after their 6-month review. The parole board ruled that neither one was a threat to society and that they got put on probation. and their probation meant that they could not have any contact with each other. Um, they could not contact Bulger's family, and they weren't allowed in that certain area anymore. Um, so they got new identities because obviously the public is going to come after them just like they did their families. They all found it unfair. So they got new identities and they were kept away from each other. But Von Venables is actually the one who broke his parole and ended up back in prison.
He was he ended up back in prison like a couple times, right? 2010, and then he was released again on parole in 2013, and then he was sentenced back in November of 2017 because they found images of CP.
Yeah, which is funny because they say that, or he says, and the psychologist that worked for them said that there's no actual proof or evidence that they got any, gratification from what they did to Bulgars. So the fact that he is still looking at that kind of stuff, into his adult age, I think Venables was a lot more messed up in the head than they realize.
Yeah, because he's not even saying much. They didn't even say much when they found James's body, like especially when it came to how they found him and the fact that he was undressed, but they never actually they were very reluctant on even saying the whole, what they did to him besides a few details. They never even said why they did it or why they undressed him in the first place or, allegedly with the batteries situation, like, and then they didn't end up finding it, but they were telling the police officers about it.
Yeah, well, there is one theory. They do say that horror movies is involved because the Thompson family did rent Child's Play 3. And in that movie, which I would know because my daughter is obsessed with Chucky and anything that has to do with Chucky. So I watched all those movies countless times, more times than I can probably count. And we have more Chucky merch in this house than probably most children do. Um, I've watched Child's Play 3 1,000 times, if not more. And in that movie, there is a scene where they throw blue paint into somebody's face and in their eyes. So the fact that they stole blue paint and then they did that to Bulger, and during that time, the Thompson family did rent that movie. There's just no proof that the boys actually watched it if one or both of them watched it. But Thompson's dad did rent the movie. Their family did rent it. So they did watch it, or at least somebody in that household did. So maybe that's where they got the idea from.
So then are we saying that, well, are you saying about movies?
I just, I'm okay. So we're both gamers, and you know what kind of games we play because we used to play Call of Duty together back in the day. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think video games and movies are really a sole cause of that kind of stuff. I mean, there are stories out there that we'll probably end up covering because I've been watching a lot about that some people do blame movies
And video games.
and video games, but they're not the sole reason. There is always a deeper and darker reason why people do something like this. It
And
it's
I
not just based off that.
and I agree with that because especially with me and my daughter who wants to help, she always come up to me and she go, "Can I help? Can I help? Can I help?" And I let her. And it's like it's the way that it's portrayed, I guess, that is how you I don't know because I don't want to say that everyone would end up like that, but because that we don't know in the right mind of someone, obviously, and what makes them tick. Because even then, that my daughter is so loving and she is so happy as can be, and just uh, I just love her. I just love her to death. That I just don't think that video games would be a sole factor in it. I don't think that movies would be a sole factor in it. Because even then, she sometimes watches whatever scary movies that was on. Like, because other kids in the house, they would watch the scary movies. Like her cousin, sh loves Chucky also. She loves Chucky. She loves Pennywise. Like, she would watch that. She'll watch stuff about zombies. Like, and she doesn't really normally get nightmares from it. So it's like, I
You
just
know
don't.
what's weird is scary movies is actually what stopped my daughter's nightmares. She used to be obsessed with Tangled. That was one of her favorite Disney movies. Watched it all the time. But if she watched it right before bed, she got nightmares of Mother Gothel all the time. But if a scary movie was on, no scary dreams. None. And then that's when we came realized that she was, she's kind of a horror fanatic. She even has a hoodie that says horror princess on it. Like she owns that crap. Like she loves them, but she's not going around hurting people. Like she's got a mouth on her. I will I will tell you that, but she's not going around actually intentionally hurting people because she's if she's accidentally hurt somebody, like she 1 year she accidentally hurt her littlest sister, my youngest who I adopted. She was swinging something around and it hit her in the face. My daughter cried about it for weeks, even after my other daughter's eye healed. She cried about it. And this is a girl who lives off scary movies. I
Yeah,
just
that
don't
would be Aaliyah
think
too.
I just don't think scary movies are a sole factor in this situation. But because of the whole blue paint thing, and that is the movie that the family rented, it, I mean, maybe that's where he got the idea from.
Is that what the community wants to say or wanted to say? And like that's how they like, because it was back in the day too, obviously. Like we're not in the 20 in the 2000 era, okay? Um, like it was literally in the 90s, and I don't know, like I know that a lot of adults probably would have sheltered their kids from that a lot, maybe. I mean, I was born in the 90s, but I was born in the late 90s, so I have no idea. Because every time that the, evolution of us and the generation now, it's like crazy to even think about it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, obviously, when you're that young, your brain is not fully functioned, so that's they probably did get their ideas from the movies, but I don't think the movie is what caused them to go do this. And it is really sad because their one little act did change multiple families involved. I mean, the Thompson family, the Venable family, the Bulger family, because the Bulgers ended up splitting up. They gave birth to their second son, but they still ended up splitting up by 1995. They both got remarried and had other children, which obviously would never replace James, but
Yeah.
their lives were severely affected, and it also changed England's laws a lot because, it is making kids be held accountable for doing something like this, especially because at age 10 you should know right or wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that they should have known from right and wrong, because clearly even the I think the psych like the what I said earlier, that the psychiatrist even said that they should have known from right and wrong. So it's crazy to even think that. I mean, two different lives. One of them seemed to be with, you know, a better life than what Thompson went through, that they they could be the mastermind behind all of it, which is crazy to me because it's like they had, I mean, they weren't perfect. Their lives wasn't perfect, but it was definitely better than what Thompson went through.
It's definitely better than what most people go through, and they're not out there, you know, doing stuff like this.
Right.
The only sad thing about this is that there's not any more background on who they were or why they were friends or why they even decided that day of all days to skip school and commit something so heinous.
It's like, why didn't they want to talk about it? If they knew that, I mean, like, I mean, not if they knew, but if by law, obviously, that they were released and all that, wouldn't they have just spoke the truth? Wouldn't you think they would have wanted to spoke the truth?
I mean, there's like I said, there are some details, even stuff that they didn't even have evidence about, so maybe they did, but they never said why. Because I mean, they were also just kids. They probably don't even understand why they really chose to do this. Because when it comes to a lot of kid criminals, the thing that they all really have in common is either they just wanted to know what it felt like, or they don't really fully understand. Your brain's not fully developed.
Yeah, when especially when you come a serial killer, it's like what you get interested in roadkill first. Always the first sign. I just want to know if what you think, Crystal. Like, what do you think about honestly kid criminals?
It's
Not even just this topic in general, but like obviously this topic and future ones that would we may talk about.
okay, so I've been watching Killer Kids when I go to bed because I have finished most of my other documentaries, and so I've been refreshing my head, I guess, on this topic. And it makes sense a lot of the time though that they just there's a lot of different factors involved. They do not actually fully understand the comprehension, but they also want to know, like, you remember being a kid and just wanting to grow up and basically be an adult, be in charge. And when it comes to this specifically, that's kind of what they probably wanted. They wanted a control, something that they got to choose and how it's done and the full extent of the fact that, they got to overpower somebody. They weren't the little guy. In
Yeah.
Robert's case. In Robert's case, he probably did take all the stuff he was dealing with at home and he finally got to be the big guy.
But then what does
I
that explain about John though? Because he was the bully in school.
And this was just another time for him to play bully, probably. Sadly, we will never know, but obviously John has a lot of issues considering he is currently incarcerated because of his last crime. So he's probably just a messed up individual in general, unfortunately.
I do believe that Robert probably was very remorseful because of him. Like, no, I don't think anyone's ever heard from him.
Yeah, nobody
Obvious.
has. I don't even know what his new identity is. Like he's out there just doing him. But Venables, he was in an inappropriate relationship while he was detained with one of the workers. He also got into a relationship after he was released with a woman who had a 5-year-old, which it grosses me out knowing what he's now currently incarcerated for.
Yeah.
But there's
Uh,
no proof that he did anything to that child or if he ever met that child, but she was a mother. And he, he had that stuff on his computer and whatnot. Like, ew.
yeah, that topic's very, very touchy, especially for current family members right now that just went through a recent tragic loss. That's another time.
That gives me like just the major ick factor. But it also affects me because one of my children has gone through something super personal and whatnot when she was only 3, and I will never not be angry about it. But it just, I don't,
The very
uh,
touchy, 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 touchy subject.
it is a very touchy subject. But like, ew, like, I wonder if she feels grossed out too, if she, knowing that he is in prison.
Do you think that she knew who he was?
I don't know, because they don't even tell us what their new identities are. They're going based off like the names that we have are the names that they had, like was their actual names.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, if even then, if they both got new identities, they know that John is in prison right now for his
well,
recent
for his
action.
current thing, well, yeah, she probably knows about that.
But that's what I'm saying though. Like, do you think that she knew who he was? Or at time, like, was he honest with her?
I doubt he was honest. I mean,
Not not with his obsession right now, but
no, I don't think he even admitted what he did to James because they tried saying that they were not guilty when they flat out kidnapped a child and did what they did.
ugh, it's crazy. It's crazy, crazy.
I mean, it is what it is, and my heart will always go out to the Bulger family. I mean, they are doing everything they can in England with their activism, trying to make sure that child criminals get what they basically deserve. And
I agree upon that because even then, right now with the United States, I believe that there are laws here in certain states that are not very fair, especially when it comes to child predators.
but yes and no. This irritates me though because a child's brain is not fully developed. Obviously, kids can change. Like they obviously realize in adulthood what they did, and then they want to be like that they actually do feel bad and they're remorseful, but they never get a life again. That's not really fair. But then there's also the other cases like John, who obviously
Uh,
had issue, but he had issues, but it had nothing to do with like he had separate issues. It should not be tied into one giant category. Like they really need to investigate deeper. But I don't think a child should be blamed for one action for the rest of their lives. Like I do feel bad for the Bulger family, but again, those were just kids themselves. And obviously one of them did feel bad and he is remorseful and he's spent the rest of his life obviously not doing anything else wrong because there's
I never
nothing on him.
said, I never said, I was just saying in general with child predators. I never said anything about children
I
being
do
incarcerated for the rest of their life. I never
I
said that.
I do think that in the United States that we should have the same laws that the other countries have and that we should protect our minors because it does suck that we just blast their names out everywhere and they don't get that protection that other countries have.
Exactly. It's not even just that. It's just like, even if they were arrested and they're not, they, what, they get a slap on the wrist sometimes and then let go.
Yeah,
Or
and most of the time they commit again, but there's also the times that where they would never commit again, but there's still some that are locked up even to this day over something that they did 30, 40 years ago.
well, that was a very hard subject to even talk about. Um, Speaking of which, we would like you guys to give us your views on this very tough topic to talk about, especially when it involves children and a lot of very bad stuff that we're trying to, keep in terms of YouTube guidelines.
It's just it's heartbreaking. I am proud of Robert, but the whole thing is just heartbreaking in general.
It is. And obviously our heart goes out to the Bulgers family, even though like it was in the 90s. It's still they remember him every single day. And I know that they always probably put James's memories out there and never forgotten, but our
He
hearts do still go out to them.
he was only 2 months younger than me. Like that's so crazy to me.
Oh my God, speaking of birthdays, they shared the same month. They were like, what, 10 days apart?
Yeah. Like
It's
they went to the same school, so I don't know how they became friends or like if they were in the same class. They lived on the same street. There's no record of that, but yeah, they were
I
definitely
just
in the
I
same
just
grade.
remember that. I was like, as we're going into our outro, I'm like, my mind's kind of running right now, and I just kind of be like,
It's just crazy to
that kind
me
of
that
fate
like
thing?
James would be the same age as me right now though. Like he could have had a family of his own.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Um, so please, please, please. Sorry. Back to our outro. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and we hope you enjoy the rest of your morning. And we are very sorry if this was a very hard topic to even listen, but we do understand if you guys couldn't make it through. If you guys did make it through, I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with this.
Then you belong here with us because you're just as twisted as we are.
It just obviously we would want you guys to stay safe out there and please give us your view on anything. Like if you disagree with us or if you disagree with me or if you disagree with Crystal.
Unlikely.
Oh my God. Just wait. Just wait until our special. I can't wait for our special. Our special is gonna be
And
great.
also, if you have a really interesting topic you want us to cover, go ahead and leave a comment or message us on Facebook, and we will definitely take those into consideration.
Also, reminder, we are going to have, pretty small merch pictures out on our Facebook page. So if you have not followed or if you have not liked the page, just keep a lookout for that. We're not going to have an official website. I know that our last video we said we were, but for right now, we're going to start small because we are a small podcast
Yeah,
because we
so
love you guys.
it's gonna be a like made to order type thing. So look at our designs, and if you want one, go ahead and submit an order, and we will.
Yeah, be a made to order. It'll be like a certain color you want, a certain color t-shirt you want, tote maybe. Just keep a lookout. Okay?
All right, until next week, guys.
We hope you stay safe and bye.